What is going on, everyone? Phil here for KO Gaming, and welcome to the Hateful Truth Review Series, where I give you maximum truth and minimum bullshit regarding the latest video game releases. Today we're going to be talking about a first-party Nintendo title for the Wii U that may be the final first-party Nintendo title for the Wii U that I ever review, being that the console is all but retired and the NX is now looming on the horizon for early next year. Of course, the game that I'm talking about is Star Fox Zero. And I want to preface this review with some knowledge about my perspective and point of view. I was a huge fan of Star Fox in the 1990s. I actually very much enjoyed playing the original Star Fox on the Super Nintendo, and of course Star Fox 64 ranked in my top 3 games for the Nintendo 64 of all time, and was actually my favorite flight-style game of the 1990s. So a lot of love and background for this series. I haven't played a Star Fox game since the 1990s, so after a 20-year wait, I was very much anticipating getting my hands on this game. Now, before I played Star Fox Zero, I had heard all kinds of controversy concerning the fact the game had been delayed multiple times, and actually it came out 5 months later than was originally intended. In addition, people who had had hands-on experience with the game by playing it at trade shows had experienced some pretty interesting difficulty curves when it came to the gyroscopic controls that were made as the default setting in the game. That's right, it is impossible to play Star Fox Zero without using the gyroscopic aiming controls inside of the Wii U gamepad, which has become a huge cause of controversy, especially among longtime fans of the series. If everyone likes a standard controller and has grown up playing the series with a standard controller, forcing a new control scheme down their throats could be a bad idea, and I'm about to tell you about my experience with it. For existing fans of the Star Fox series, you might love this game just based off the nostalgia factor alone, because you're going to see a lot of familiar things from previous Star Fox games. The game itself is not actually a prequel or sequel, but a reboot of the plotline of Star Fox, and so you're going to see a lot of the original characters, the original villains, and even most of the stages are based straight out of previous Star Fox games, including your home planet of Corneria, the final boss planet of Venom, various different sectors, and yes, even the asteroid field makes a return appearance. In addition to that, there are actually some returning bosses, which I don't want to spoil here in the review, so I'm not going to show them, but needless to say, if you did enjoy those Star Fox games from the 1990s, you're going to actually get a lot of references and direct Easter eggs from them, and you're going to say, wow, this is cool. You could definitely tell that the people who made this game were fans of the original games to begin with. The gameplay of Star Fox Zero is a unique mix of the classic and completely new. When you first jump into the game, it's gonna feel incredibly familiar. You're gonna be flying over Corneria, you're gonna be taking on enemies coming at you in waves, a very linear path, although there are a few secrets along the way during the first stage if you can find them, and it's a lot of fun, especially for those who are looking for a throwback to those classic games of the 1990s. But then later on in the game, you're gonna realize that this is a very different animal than those games from 20 years ago, especially when you're forced repeatedly to use the gyroscopic controls on your gamepad to aim. I'm going to tell you pretty much as easily as I can my experience playing Star Fox Zero. Look at the gamepad, look at the TV, look at the gamepad, look at the TV, aim the gamepad, try to do something with the gamepad, but you can't really see where your vehicle is on the gamepad, so now you gotta look back at the TV, but then you gotta look back at the gamepad. It's a total mess, and the problem is the control scheme was set up with a dual screen compatibility that needs you to be having your attention focused on both at once, which is physically impossible because you can't make your two eyeballs look at two different places. So it really is kind of annoying when you get to certain stages, and it's absolutely necessary for certain boss fights and for certain places to actually be using this screen on your gamepad, but you just want to keep looking at the television. It's very distracting. In addition, in areas where you need to use those gyroscopic aiming controls, it actually starts to wear on your wrists. Usually when you're playing a game, your hands are in a relaxed state, but that's not allowed during Star Fox Zero. You have to constantly be wiggling your wrists in some kind of a configuration as if you're actually aiming something in front of you to shoot at it. And after about 90 minutes of gameplay, I found that my wrists started to get sore. And so it actually was a chore to play Star Fox Zero for any longer than, say, an hour and a half, which is unacceptable. If I'm going to buy a game, I should be able to play it for however as long as I want. It shouldn't feel like a physical chore, and unfortunately, because of the control design that was intended for this game, that's exactly what it ends up feeling like. Unfortunately, that's not where Star Fox Zero's shortcomings end. First of all, the graphics of the game are outdated. Even being on the Wii U, which isn't exactly the most powerful console, I expected better than blocky rings, pixelated textures, and a game that basically looks like it could have been run on the Nintendo Wii. In fact, I'd even go as far to say maybe it was actually being designed for the Wii and was just simply upscaled for the Wii U, because these graphics are nothing impressive whatsoever. In addition, the game is just too short. You can actually run through one playthrough of Star Fox Zero in around 3 to 3.5 hours if you actually master the controls relatively quickly. And the bottom line is, yes, there is lots of replayability because there's actually the ability to unlock alternate paths once you've beaten the game once, because you now have the ability to morph your vehicle from the flight mode into the walker mode or various other modes depending on what stage you're on. The problem being, even if you unlock all of the alternate paths in the game, there's still only about 12 to 16 stages tops, each of which can be beaten between 10 to 20 minutes at the most. So you're talking maybe a 5-hour gameplay experience, maybe a little longer if you struggle with the controls like I did, for a full $60 price tag. And it's kind of funny because when I bought this game, it also included a free game called Star Fox Guard, and I said, why does it include a whole second game with it? Well, now I think I kind of get it, because Nintendo didn't think they could get away with selling a 5 to 6 hour long game for $60. They included a tower defense game that no one asked for and no one wants as a freebie to kind of justify that price tag on the purchase. It's incredibly just dishonest of Nintendo to be selling a game that is not a full-fledged game in 2016 for full retail price, and that's a major problem with this game. Nintendo almost thought, like, well, we could do no wrong, we'll sell you a short game because it's a first-party game, we'll charge you way more money than it's worth, and that's just ridiculous. In addition to that, an even bigger slight in my opinion is the fact that Star Fox Zero is literally a bait and switch. If you've followed all of the media and the promotion that Nintendo have given this game over the past couple of years, they were constantly touting that, oh, this is a Star Fox where on the fly you can transform your vehicle into a walker or a tank, and it's going to have all this great gameplay that's never been in Star Fox before, and that's what's taken so long to develop the game, because really we're trying to find a way to implement this properly and make it work. And they lied. The bottom line is those transformation stages are only about 3 to 4 out of the entire game, and I'm not joking here. You probably use the walker 2 to 3 stages tops. The tank transformation you only use once ever, only on a single world. So I don't know what Nintendo was working on, what took them so long to release this game, but it certainly was not adding in a new gameplay elements or anything like that. In fact, for the short amount of time that you actually use the walker and the tank, and the 1 or 2 worlds where you actually use the hovercraft, it feels like a gimmick, like something that was patched into the game after it was done to say, oh, let's add some variety for variety's sake, because the game seems too short. So, Star Fox Zero not only is incredibly short, doesn't have enough content for a modern game, but also was a complete bait and switch from the get-go, but there's also one other major problem. That problem is that Nintendo thinks it's still 1996 and that it's acceptable to have stages in a modern video game with little to no checkpoints. The entire final world of Venom is one long continuous sequence. First a crazy dogfight, followed by a puzzle sequence which could take 5 to 10 minutes to complete if you go the wrong way, and then finally the final boss fight takes about maybe I'd say 15 to 20 minutes to get through. But if you die on the final boss and don't have any extra lives, you have to replay that sequence from the beginning, replaying an additional 15 to 20 minutes of gameplay for no reason whatsoever, because Nintendo still thinks it's 1996 and didn't put checkpoints into that sequence to pad the length of their game. Later on in the game, when you're trying to unlock those secret worlds and sequences, a lot of the times you have to find a secret exit or a warp out of a stage. If you take that warp, you'll then go to the new area, which is either a dogfight or a new world. But if you die on that world, you then have to redo the original warp sequence all over again. There was one boss fight in this game that was incredibly difficult because it needs you to use the gyroscopic controls 100% of the time, and it's an effing nightmare. I died on this stage maybe 4 to 5 times and had to redo the first sequence to get to it at least 3 times because Nintendo decided to not put any checkpoints in the entire thing. It actually got so bad that the game gave me a freebie. It actually handed me an invincibility token so that I could just pass the whole thing and get on to the rest of the content of the game because I was starting to get fucking really pissed. What the hell, Nintendo? It's 2016 and you can't figure out that modern gamers don't want to redo 15 to 20 minutes of gameplay because you can't put a checkpoint into your game? And I honestly have to think the reason that this was done is because the game was so short. Nintendo said, oh, well, if people don't have to redo that gameplay and there's checkpoints, they'll probably beat it in like 2 to 3 hours. So we definitely have to make it artificially difficult by not putting them in the game. It's unacceptable in 2016. It's disrespectful to the consumer. It's a huge oversight, and Nintendo just basically dropped the ball with this game. Ultimately, Star Fox Zero is a game with great intentions that's tainted by terrible game design. It's too short, the gyroscopic controls are not fun to play with, and sometimes you just have to ask the question, is innovation good in and of itself, or should there be a reason to innovate in order to have it implemented properly? I'm not saying that the controls of Star Fox Zero don't work. I'm saying that they're not fun to play with. It's not fun to have to go between 2 different screens and hold a gamepad up in front of your face while you wiggle it around in the air and hurt your wrists in the process, because that's not what we're accustomed to. We like a standard controller. We've played multiple Star Fox games with a standard controller that worked very well. There was no reason for this game to be designed like this except for Nintendo trying to push their gimmick of the Wii U down our throats one more final time before the console was retired. It's ridiculous. It ruined the game for me, and judging by all the other reviews that I've seen on the internet, it seems like there's a consensus that Nintendo really didn't know what the hell they were doing when they made this game, and it is such a disappointing shame because I waited 20 years to play another Star Fox. I finally did, and overwhelmingly underwhelmed is the only feeling that I've walked out of this with. It's not very good. It's very annoying. I'm even going to tell you, if you're an old school fan of Star Fox, just watch someone's playthrough of the game so you can see all the nostalgia based stuff and don't even bother buying it. You're going to get so frustrated with what they did with this thing rather than innovating for the sake of improving the game, of making it more fun or adding in replayability or having multiple stages, which they claimed they were going to do. They really just fooled us with this one and put out a piece of crap. Unfortunately, I have to rate it honestly. And Star Fox Zero, even though it's a functional game, and if you do struggle with it, you will eventually learn the controls, it's not a fun game to play, probably about 50% of the time. And so I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to give Star Fox Zero a 5 out of 10. If a game's only fun to play half the time you're playing it, something's wrong, and it's only going to get half of a perfect score. 5 out of 10 for Star Fox Zero. In my opinion, and this is a bold statement, this is the worst first-party game I've played from Nintendo, probably in the past decade, because I had many of these on the Wii and Wii U. I pretty much almost always enjoyed a first-party game. This is my least favorite. Shame on Nintendo for going the gimmick route one more last time before the console was retired. It was a waste of time, a waste of all of our experience, waiting 20 years for a massive dud. And that is it for the Hateful Truth on Star Fox Zero, everyone. I sure hope that you enjoyed the review, and if you did, please consider giving it a like right here on YouTube, and also check out the video description. First, you can find a link to my raw playthrough of Star Fox Zero on my gameplay channel, DSP Gaming, that you can check out at your leisure. In addition, there's an Amazon associate link you can use when you shop on Amazon.com. And last but not least, please check out my Patreon at patreon.com/DarksidePhil and consider pledging if you'd like to help the effort. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you next time for another game review.